Welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, we have an exciting session titled Business Innovation in Accelerating the SDGs. To attain the required level of sustainability needed on a planet-wide scale, large and rapid improvements are needed. This can only be done through disruptive and radical innovation. The ambition of the SDGs must be matched by bold investments and business innovations. Considerable new investment is required to close the 1.5 trillion USD annual gap between what is spent today and what would suffice to meet the SDGs. In addition to looking for ways to close the investment gap, there is a need to focus on reducing both the amount of investment necessary and the time needed to achieve results. Hence, accelerating innovation is key to meeting the SDGs. We would also like to alert our attendees that simultaneous Sinhala and Tamil language interpretations will be available throughout this virtual event. And we encourage all attendees to utilize this facility if preferred. The interpretation option is available at the bottom portion of your screen. This session is interactive, and we encourage attendees to use the Q&A function to pose questions to the session panelists. Please tag UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka and your participation in MGGLB Sri Lanka when sharing on social media. The Network Sri Lanka social media handles will be available in your chat box throughout this session. To commence the discussion, we warmly welcome the following panelists. Mr. Irfan Ahmed, Chief Digital Officer, EFL. He is the founder of Innovation Quotient Private Limited, a design and innovation think tank, and has expertise in consumer insight, data and analytics, business model design, and technology product management. Ms. Sandra De Soisa is the chairperson of the National Chamber for IT, BPM Industry, Sri Lanka Association of Software and Services Companies, or SLASCOM. Group Chief Customer Officer of Dialogue, Chairperson Digital Customer Experience Group for Axiata Berhad, and Director of Dialogue Business Services. Ms. Pilar Diaz is CEO of Femtech at MAS Holdings and is a passionate advocate for women's empowerment and women's rights, driving attention to feminine hygiene and health rights as basic human rights to pave the way to gender equality and a better society. Mr. Joseph Aguto is the Chief Special Projects Officer as well as Chairman of Safaricom Foundation. His experience in the communication industry spans more than 35 years, of which the last 20 have been at an executive committee level. The session moderator is Mr. Fadil Bakir Marker, the team lead policy and engagement at UNDP Sri Lanka, leading a dynamic and results-oriented team working on policy, partnerships, innovation, digital gender communications, and youth engagements, and leads Sri Lanka's first social innovation lab, CITRA. Mr. Fadil Bakir Marker, over to you to kick us off.
Thank you, Janani. Indeed, accelerating innovation, especially in the private sector, is critical. Innovation in the private sector across the world is a prerequisite for achieving the 169 ambitious targets, which collectively make up the 17 SDGs. Innovation can significantly shift the economics of potential solutions and the timeline for delivering them. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to everyone joining from various parts of the world today. We have a fantastic lineup joining from Kenya, Spain, and Colombo. UNDP's 2020 Human Development Report highlights that in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, we are at an unprecedented crossroads in history, in which human activity has become a dominant force shaping the planet, threatening significant development reversals. The report argues that nothing short of a great transformation in how we work, live, and cooperate is needed to change the path we are on. During the conversation this afternoon, we aim to discuss and gain greater understanding of the business case for innovation and the importance of the context in which technology, design, and innovation is applied. Identify and demonstrate through examples the business case of unlocking potential of the disruptive innovation to accelerate progress towards global goals. We want this conversation to inspire the private sector entities and others to foster innovation, to explore opportunities beyond standard operations, how businesses are to contribute positively to the global goals, while also retaining their competitive advantage. We want to discuss how innovation approaches such as human-centered design and design thinking can be applied. The technologies of the fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, automation, robots, 5G, are rapidly becoming mainstream, enabling transformation of entire systems and networks. Widespread change can be seen across companies, industries, countries, and societies. Therefore, it is crucial to ensure that these technologies are harnessed in the right way to fulfill the potential to revolutionize the world, transform the lives of people, and unlock new pathways to prosperity, fast-tracking sustainable development globally. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let us move to our panelists. Panelists, so great to have you all again, and I'm truly inspired and looking at the work that you have spearheaded. It's absolutely inspirational. I will come to you for a quick round of introductory remarks and move to the Q&A, following which I'll come back to you again for a round of closing interventions. Participants online, you may start sending in your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to accommodate as many questions as possible. Joe, you bring 35 years of experience and nearly 20 years of which is at an executive level. And you have worked on formulating strategic direction for business focusing on developing Safaricom's position as an industry leader in driving innovation. Can you, in your opening remarks, share with us insights and experience in formulating strategic direction for business and driving innovation in products and services, the importance and relevance of SDGs to businesses as well as innovation? Over to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Fadil. Thank you for the invitation, and really honored to be part of this panel this afternoon. Safaricom, as you said, is the mobile telecom company. Started about 20 years ago. It's the biggest company quoted on the stock exchange in East Africa. And recently, we've just won a license to operate in Ethiopia, which is the second largest country in Africa by population. So our purpose, we as a company, we set our purpose that we are about transforming lives, i.e. that we'll connect people to people, we'll connect people to opportunities, and we'll connect people to knowledge. And so that is our overriding purpose as a company. So we strongly believe that doing good is good for business, and I will explain, business has to be present at the table where societal issues are being addressed. Business is about creating solutions for societal challenges. And therefore, there is no contradiction, in our view, there's no contradiction between addressing societal issues and also creating shareholder value. In the sector that we operate, you have to be innovative. Mobile technology and so on, you have to be innovative. If you're not innovative, you are going to perish, and that's just a fact. Yeah, and therefore our innovation is purposely driven by what we call the shared value business. In other words, we want to move from the extractive, exploitative approaches to one where you incorporate a wider ecosystem of stakeholders. And therefore, as you do business, you have to care about the customer, you have to care about your suppliers, you have to care about your business partners, you have to care about the community within which you serve. Because if you do not care for the community, then you cannot talk about long-term sustainable business. So a case in point for us is M-Pesa, which some of you perhaps have heard of, which is a digital financial services platform started in 2007. Before that, financial inclusion was about 23%. Yeah, not many people had bank accounts and so on. And because most of our population is in the rural areas, transferring money was a challenge. If it's not the postal service, which takes several days, then you use public transport. So mobile services allowed for person-to-person transfer of money over their mobile devices. And to make this work, you needed a network of agents across the country where people can deposit and they can also withdraw. You needed banks with you where agents could then deposit the money, and we call them super agents. You needed a platform where individuals could register with a KYC information in a way that even banks can accept. What has happened over the last 13 years? What has happened is that financial inclusion has moved from 25% to now 82%. Another 82% of the population are on a monthly basis interacting with the financial system. The business today is generating over $800 million in revenue. Many today do not need to go to the bank because every transaction is carried on their phone. They are able to buy groceries in all the retail shops because most of it is now done over the M-Pesa platform. They're able to pay their utilities. They're able to withdraw from banks money. And therefore, I can say, therefore, doing good is good for business. With this, therefore, it became very easy for us to incorporate the SDGs into our corporate goals. Now, I've spoken about this previously, and people have said, oh, because you're a big company, it is easy for you to incorporate SDGs. But we, from our very experience, we have noted that when you incorporate those SDGs into your corporate goals, it is very easy to address societal issues. I want to leave it there, and maybe in the course of the conversation this afternoon, I can give more color and more details as to how we've been able to incorporate these goals. Over to you, Fadil. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Pilar, you have combined passion with your genuine interest in sustainability, seizing opportunity to do good for both women and the planet, proudly contributing to drive positive transformation, striving to change social norms. And I think Joe spoke a little bit to that angle. Femtech is an amazing story. Tell us more. Tell us on how advancements in female-centric technology has improved women's health and well-being. It is a people-centric approach the way we see it. What's the impact on multiple SDGs? How has it really had that ripple effect on society and women's empowerment and paved the way for gender equality? Over to you, Pilar.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be participating here today. As you said, I'm going to be talking through about something that I'm really passionate about. This is about women's health and hygiene needs, a very basic human right and a very area of gender inequalities today. This is something that impacts half the world population, and the other half, men, are possibly also interested to learn more about this, right? Because every man would have a daughter, perhaps, a sister, perhaps, a wife, or a mother. Now, traditionally, the female health industry has been underfunded and under-researched significantly. Of all of the global R&D funds, only 4% of those funds goes towards this sector. As you can imagine, all of those taboos and stigmas surrounding female intimate hygiene and health has been a barrier for innovation during the past decades. Luckily for us, this is now about to change, and it's changing. In the last 5 years, there has been significant progress with many more companies, brands, investors making an effort to really put this top of the agenda and start making some changes, not only for the benefit of women, but also society in general. It's important to know a few things. Women will go through 450 periods in their life. That is many period life cycles, right? Beyond that, most women will use products that are for one single use, maybe sanitary pads, tampons. That creates significant waste, and much of that waste is really plastics. We already know about what plastics will do to the environment. Apart from that, women will be more likely than men to develop urinary incontinence problems. That's something that we also need to address and be mindful. Women will go through maternity, but also through postpartum phase. And that has been also something which can lead to significant psychological impact in many women. And lastly, when they get to the menopause, they will realize that that is a phase where there is little support for them. There is little knowledge around the menopause, and there is significantly little innovations or very few innovations that are addressing any needs in the menopause phase. So gladly, as I say, this is changing now. And at MAS Holdings, we are really proud to be committed to women's health and hygiene needs. And we are obsessed about really driving this through products that are reusable, that are apparel solutions, and then by nature, something that you would use, reuse once and again. And this would be about replacing some of those products that are meant for one single use. So the future is much brighter. And we will talk later about this in more detail, but there are many areas where this work contributes to the SDGs, not only to improve women's lives, but also to improve the environmental impact that these innovations will have, right? We are making progress through gender equality. We are really contributing for a better health and well-being. We are really driving more responsible consumption and production with now products that are reusable rather than disposables or for one single use. So all of this to say that there is quite a lot of action right now in the femtech space, and that it was about time for it.
Thank you, Pilar. You covered so many different SDGs, and I'm going to come back to you. I don't think that 3 or 4 minutes is just enough justice to what you have to say and the impact and the transformational effect that we are looking at. So I'm going to move to our next panelist now. From a think tank, experience in many corporates, innovation and digital experience, Irfan, a practitioner and advocate for innovation in business, can you, in your opening remarks, capture the role of innovation in business, its intricate intersections on social and economic development, innovation frameworks, perhaps design thinking, digital futures? You can capture all that maybe in your 4 minutes if you can. Thank you. Over to you, Irfan.
It's a pleasure to be here with this esteemed panel. You've asked me to cover a lot in 4 minutes. I'll probably touch on it, but also maybe we can cover it more on the panel discussion. So I'm going to talk more from my current role, working within digital and innovation in what's arguably now, I think, Sri Lanka's most valuable company, but also global supply chain logistics company. For us, it's just like Joe was alluding to. It's if you do good, if you do it well, but also if you do it fast, you will then tend to accrue good things. Being a global supply chain logistics company, we believe we sit at a very interesting vantage point, in the sense that we're very aware that about 80% of the 169 SDG goals have are directly or indirectly impacted by supply chain inefficiencies, or by supply chain rather. So we do sit at an important vantage point where we're able to spot where these inefficiencies could be, but not just see it, but do something about it. And for us, that's a big part of our purpose. I think when it comes to innovation, we constantly tend to focus on something new, create fantastic product experience, and generally conquer the market. So that's generally around operational and business performance. My personal view, as well as at EFL, is that alongside that operational and business performance, there has to be a value creation that's just beyond profit. And for us, it's that value creation is profit plus a social purpose. And that sense of social purpose today, kind of permeates everything that we work on and everything that we think about. And if I were to detail that a little bit, which we can get into later, as a supply chain company, we sit at the intersection of global trade. We can see products and services moving by. We essentially manage the flow of product. And even if you look at one of the SDGs, which is responsible production and consumption, there's a lot of wastage within that. So if we are to take that point, one of the biggest roles or responsibilities we've given ourselves is, how do we really manage the flow of information that will make the flow of trade a lot more efficient? I think that's the starting point. If you want to change something, you need to be able to quantify that using data. So for us, creating visibility around it, measuring it, and then creating either solutions or products that help us minimize and make it a lot more responsible consumption and production is clearly a big part of our business roadmap. Being a good corporate citizen is a big part of innovation for us. We basically pursue innovation at a staff level, at a country level, and even at a product level. So just some examples of how we use our design thinking and our innovation capability. Within our team, we have an internal brand called Global Goodness, literally about motivating our staff to take on projects that champion either environment or any other CSR activity. We measure how from an environment impact point of view, we even measure how much of paper each office generates, and how we use that information to basically calculate impact on the environment. We are trying to calculate from an innovation point of view how much of the carbon footprint on a shipment and how we minimize that. So it's a constant challenge. It's a constant conversation for us. But again, to your question, Fadil, from an innovation point of view, these are all very, very powerful problems to solve. And we are committed to solving those problems as we move forward. I'll leave it at that, and happy to elaborate further in our panel discussion.
Thank you, Irfan. When you were talking about how you take it to the staff, and I may come back to you on that as well, and maybe pose a couple of questions later on. Staff, country, society. I was thinking about, what came to my mind was the Adobe Kickbox. Adobe has this innovation kit for staff. Really try to encourage that approach. So thank you very much, Irfan. Let me move to our final panelist for the introductory remark. With experience in the IT industry spanning over 3 decades, a founding board member of the Women's Chamber for Digital, industry leader shattering glass ceilings all over, Group CCO at Dialogue and chair of SLASCOM, Sandra, what is the role of technology and digital innovation? Importance of innovation for business continuity and sustainability. Over to you, Sandra.
Fadil, thank you for this. Good day to everyone joining us today, and my appreciation also to UN Global Compact Sri Lanka for actually inviting me, relatively a newcomer or a new kid on the block, given my recent role, taking up the position of the first female chair of SLASCOM. Of course, I've not spent too much time thinking about SDGs and all of the good that seemed obvious, but consciously doing something about it, I would say in the last decade. But certainly I can say in the last couple of months, I haven't done anything more than spending time trying to understand the importance and how I can really pass on and be an advocate for what technology can do to make the world a better place. And also the fact that working at Dialogue, when Dialogue has the influence over 17 million citizens of this country, and of course we are at the cusp of technology and innovation, obviously. And then, my newer role at SLASCOM has got me thinking that if there's nothing else I do in the next, foreseeable future, right now, it is the role I can play to be able to talk about the importance, to bring about awareness within the industry, IT BPM industry, within employees that work with us, and in general, even on a more personal note, perhaps in the home, within our families, neighborhoods, societies, to create the awareness and also to get the business leaders to get into the action mode, right? So I think a lot of us have spent a lot of time talking about things, but now is almost too late. So we need to jump into the action mode. And doing so, I know Joe talked about as well. And of course, Fadil, you talked about the 17 SDGs. Clearly, there's a roadmap there when it comes to innovation and technology and the role we can play. Specifically, the 169 targets that allow to guide the whole world in how businesses should set about and focus on this clear action plan. Again, 70% of these targets, as we know, are within the fourth industrial revolution. And Fadil, you talked about it, but I want to mention again that this is about the fusion of advancement in AI, in robotics, in IoT, 3D printing, genetic engineering, quantum computing, and more relevantly for Joe and myself as well, 5G technology. What will the impact of 5G technology be on the world, and how can we advance? Also, another thing is, we know that some of these technologies and some of our industries are the greatest culprits for creating some of the harm, especially when you think about all of the data centers, which is impossible to live without these days. What is the impact that we create in terms of setting up data centers? So one of the things for SLASCOM that I boldly put out was the fact that we want to focus on being an IT, green IT country, as a whole country, right? And how can we sort of bring everybody together to take us on this journey to making sure that we really spearhead for the country and innovate for our customers across the world, the propositions that we have in business. Because as I think Joe mentioned, it is about the good that we create. And so we have come up with the slogan, Sri Lanka Tech for Good. We want to focus on how Sri Lanka can ensure that technology is used for the good of the nation, our citizens, our country, and of course for global good. Now, when we talk about the good, we actually are thinking of our own people around us. We're thinking of our children, our future generations, our neighborhoods, our societies we live in, right? And what are we doing? What are we creating? And how best can we bring about a great impact for all of these, right? So therefore, I think technology and digital innovation, which are very closely intertwined now, is one or the only way we can accelerate the achievement of these SDGs, particularly in the area of quality education, good health, well-being, industry innovation, and infrastructure, which we can all play a great role in order to make sure that we accelerate and also that we are able to bridge this digital divide by ensuring that we have the necessary innovative propositions and the infrastructure in place to make sure that infrastructure is available, accessible in a way that it can be greatly adopted. And that has a lot to do with the cost structures as well. And of course, overall, some of the aspirations even Sri Lanka has in building, sustainable cities and communities and so on. And well, in a sort of an indirect way, it can also help to, in SDGs like no poverty or clean water and sanitization, like Pilar talked about as well. Of course, affordable clean energy and zero hunger and all of that. So when I think about technology and the innovations, I think within this...
Can I come back to you again in a little while? I think I'm just looking at the time. Is that okay? Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay,
yes.
Fadil.
And I'm just going to take you on that one point. Technology and innovation, one or the only way to accelerate SDGs. You said that, I couldn't have put it better. It's less than 9 years we have to achieve, and this is called the decade of action. We really need to accelerate. So thank you very much, panelists, for that amazing round of introductory remarks. Everyone has a role to play. Tech for good, doing good as part of business. I think you all have really captured that. Now I want to go into questions because I have a couple of questions on the chat box as well that I want to pick up. First round, let me go to Pilar first. Due to social stigma, feminine health has been undermined, an undermined issue for the longest time. You take South Asia, it's out there. With the new age of femtech, to what extent have women's health issues and the lives of women been impacted? You have like the societal impact. You spoke about a lot of SDGs across, and how has this complemented your business in a way? Over to you, Pilar.
So, thank you. In this area of feminine hygiene and health, innovation is as important as the initiatives we really implement to really fight the stigma and the taboos surrounding this. There is still plenty of taboos. In many countries, women have to stop anything they are doing while they are menstruating. Girls are missing school days. In well-developed markets, women are still afraid of just saying, I'm in a terrible period pain and I cannot come to the office today. Or I'm going through a drama as I go through the menopause, or I'm going through a postpartum depression. There are still many taboos, but little by little, I think we are eradicating that thanks to the contribution of the many brands, companies, investors that are really now focusing in this area, that it was really much needed and about the time to do that. Today, we are proud to say there is a world monthly hygiene or the World Menopause Day, or there is actually people who are open about endometriosis as a period pain condition, really heavy pain. Women are now a little bit more confident to talk about menopause and what they go through. That is thanks to the contribution of many brands and companies really pushing the boundaries on this, and we need more of that. With that being said, let me just remind that still today, only 4% of the global R&D is really dedicated to innovate in this area, and many companies are still not brave enough to actually break some of those taboos that are surrounding female intimate hygiene and health. But I'm really proud to see the progress this is making so far, and I think the audience will agree that we've seen much more of that in the last 2 to 3, 4 years, significantly a difference.
Thank you, Pilar. Sandra, I'm coming to you again. There is this. You spoke of dialogue, you related to Joe as well, how, 5G and 17 million people, probably Joe has, 3-digit numbers there in millions. Is innovation limited to, and Joe had this question, is innovation limited to large companies? Can it actually, you work at Slascom, so you're working with a lot. Can it be applied to SMEs, micro enterprises? Can the private sector as a whole support each other to foster this innovation? Over to you, Sandra.
So I feel, Fadil, that's an extremely pertinent question. Is certainly innovation is not meant for the large, the large organizations of this world. And innovation actually does come from dire need of the smaller organizations. So some of the most innovative propositions come out of, there's micro businesses and SMEs as well. Now, also the growth within the industries, within countries, have to be fueled by supporting the micro businesses and the SMEs. There's no way we can grow faster and get bigger and do better in society unless we are all really focused on supporting, even in fact, the businesses that are run by females, the cottage industries, particularly within the last 1.5 years during the pandemic. So many little industries, mom and pop shops have started up businesses, and all of that is fueled by digital transformation solutions and very transformative solutions that are available. In fact, all of us being here right now from across the globe, we would not have thought that that was possible 2 years ago, right? We would not have bothered. And we have Joe here to talk about his experiences. That would have been a bit of a tough one. We would have had to invite Joe to Sri Lanka, and that would have been, a lot more difficult. But here we are today, the world has completely shrunk, and all this is made possible. And we have this unique possibility, being in industry and technology, to be able to shrink this world, bridge that digital divide, and make the world available at the, at your fingertips across the globe, right? So it is certainly, I think, definitely and certainly meant, and our focus from Dialogue, I can tell you, and from Slascom, I can tell you, our focus is really on building, fueling, supporting the businesses which are small and medium, and also the startup businesses, and particularly an initiative we have called the Women Technopreneurs, which is actually about women entrepreneurs, and looking to encourage and support within our vision of 1,000 startups by 2025. I am particularly keen on looking at what percentage of that can be led by women entrepreneurs or women technopreneurs.
Awesome. That's just wonderful. 1,000 startups by 2025. Very much looking forward to it, and perhaps engaging in such sort of bold, ambitious plans. Joe's name has been coming across a couple of times in this conversation. So I'm going to come to you next, Joe. There's a question in the chat box as well. Joe, having personally used and seen the impact of M-Pesa, so there is someone in the audience who've used M-Pesa. I am deeply impressed how it has transformed Kenya. Is there anything that Safaricom would do differently in its rollout or afterward? So I want to tie one part, like, lessons here as well. What would you do? Is there anything in reflection, in hindsight, that you would do better or change? And also linked to that is, you spoke a lot earlier, and I want a big company. How about the culture there? How do you create a culture? And I'm going to come to a similar point to Irfan later as well, but culture and your lessons learned limited to this. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Fadil. I hope you can hear me. Let me just comment on the point that Sandra has made. The question you asked to her is innovation about big companies as opposed to small companies. I can tell you our experience is that you need to work with the small companies, the startups, and so on to innovate. For instance, our financial services platform, we have opened it up to innovators. We have APIs, and people who are subscribed to it are more than 70,000 across the globe. What is the benefit of that? They have been able to develop services on top of that platform, services that we're using. So these people have been able to link banks to their customers over the M-Pesa platform. There is so much that you can do when you work together with a small with the small funds. The other things they've been able to do, and I'm sorry I'm taking time. The small startups are the ones who have created a platform for government and county governments to be able to collect revenue and to pay for government services over the M-Pesa platform. It would not have been possible without those small companies. In terms of culture, how do you inculcate a culture of innovation within the company? Innovation has to be an enterprise-wide business. It's not about a function within a particular department. It has to be enterprise. Encourage people to come up with ideas. We don't have time. I could have told you some of the bright ideas that have come even from our call center, our contact center, not the mainstream business, So you have to encourage that. And then there will be failure. You will have to tolerate failure. Failure is part of innovation. You really have to allow people to fail fast. And, it's almost like a cliche, fail fast, but it is so true. Because if you come hard on them and you don't tolerate failure, there will be no innovation, okay? Let me leave it there.
Thank you, Joe. I'm going to come back to you on that failing point again. I want to ask, this big company, 30 odd years of experience. Let me come. Irfan, can I come to you now? For me, as leading Citra and working with public sector, human-centered design thinking, it's part of our DNA. We take it, it's easier to apply, citizens at the center, citizens focused, citizen driven. At the end, that's the beneficiary. So we think, we empathize, we follow that process. You spoke about it, but is it really possible to apply? Is there, what is the potential contributions from these approaches to the business?
I think it's very possible to apply, Fadil. I think it's called design thinking today, but fundamentally, what is it? In the pursuit of building superior products and services, essentially what we're trying to do is to create some meaning for someone, right? Or for someone or a group of people. I always say, if you don't make meaning, you don't make money. That's the bottom line. Or you don't create an impact beyond money. So the thing around design thinking is, generally when we work on something new, I think one of the biggest obstacles we face is it's built within a very constrained environment, and then we wonder why it doesn't work. So what design thinking really does is it helps you socialize your idea, it helps you socialize your assumptions, and it helps you socialize, let's say, the first version of your product, as well as it helps you socialize input into making that product better. And the key word here is socialize, right? The best innovations use some form of or method of socializing in terms of how the idea is sourced, to how the solution is developed, to eventually how it is deployed. Most often we create a product or service in a lab environment. in a boardroom on an Excel sheet, and then we put it out to the market and wonder why it didn't work. So fundamentally, it's about empathizing around whose problem you're solving, why you need to solve that problem, how you are solving it best, and then how you create value in that process. And that fundamental process is applicable whether you're an SME, a large corporate, or just just a social innovation lab. What it does is it moves it beyond just the realm of a few people to an idea that gets socialized. And the premise there is more brains than one will definitely help you get that idea out a lot faster.
Right. Thank you, Irfan. Let me just go back to Joe again, because Joe, you spoke of failures. And said fail fast, and we say that you fail, you stand up again, keep going. But what are some of the failures? Have you or your organization, your experience? What are some failures? Because you're a big company, so when you say about failures, I think it's going to inspire folks. You say you've managed to come. So, what any failures that you can reflect on in your experience? Causes of these failures? What are the big lessons that you have learned?
One that comes immediately to mind, there have been a number of failures. One that comes immediately to mind is what we're doing with an insurance company. How do we have an insurance product that is accessible to the poorest in the society, to enable them to make small savings and then to be able to use that to access affordable medical care? And so the intentions were very good, and we started well. Unfortunately, for us, together with the insurance company, and the insurance companies, I don't know whether it's different in your country, they're the most conservative businesses. And I've said this before, they nearly killed me, but they're very, very conservative. They trust their ways of doing things. So what happened is that because many people came into it, the loss ratio, what they call the loss ratio, was unsustainable for that insurance company. Yeah, and this was a valid reason. So we've had to go back to the drawing board. Right now, we are working with the National Health Insurance Fund, yeah, that covers the whole country. And as my CEO says, what can we do to lift the floor for the sector? So rather than work with one insurance company, we're working with the National Hospital Insurance Fund to see how we can lift the floor, leveraging on technology in order to deliver solutions to our people. That is absolutely key. In 1 minute and 1 second, let me address the question that was raised on the chat, which was saying, what could you have done differently on M-Pesa? The one thing that we could have done differently was to open up earlier. We tended to be very protective. This was a competitive advantage for us, so we tended to be very protective of our platform. We should have opened up the platform much earlier to allow the co-creation of products and services that we're seeing today. Number two, we should have allowed interoperability with other platforms much earlier. Again, the mindset was about closing up, taking advantage of it. So those are the two things I can say that perhaps would have done differently, which we are doing now, and we're seeing the benefits. Thank you.
Great. Before I pose another question to one of the panelists, I'm not sure whether Pilar, Sandra, Irfan, do you want to come in on the failure point? Have you seen your experience or a culture point? You want to jump in here? And then perhaps I'll just look through a few more questions for you guys from the fan chat, as well as based on the conversation that's triggering. I want to look at you, if anyone if you want to come in.
Sure, Father. Just to.
Okay, Irfan, and then can I go to Irfan and then Sandra?
So I think the point of failure is a constant debate, and I think Joe's example is something we would also face on a daily basis. I think the other thing around innovation and failure is how we facilitate it. One is how we recognize it and how we facilitate it. How do you recognize it's a failure? So something that you face as I think our biggest obstacle is the fear of failure when we work in innovation, and that happens because we try to innovate within a business that is used to efficiency and predictability, and then when something goes wrong, we deem it to be a failure, which it may be. But I think another thing, I'm just trying to show a different aspect to failure. So it may perhaps not be a failure, but a learning if you create if you facilitate it differently. So, you know, something that we've done is whatever we work on is first, it's worked out slightly outside the business in an R&D capacity with dedicated resources, timeline, and focus, and how it's measured and monitored is very different vis-a-vis the performance aspects of a business. Because if you try to tie in performance to an innovation, you're bound to fail, because you need to give it room to breathe, to grow, to experiment, and to constantly pivot. And you can't do that within the realms of the business. So just wanted to bring that point in as well.
Thank you, Irfan, for that. Sandra, can I come to you now on that? You wanted to jump in?
Yes, so I think the age-old saying failures are the pillars to success is very true. And if I think of it from a dialogue point of view, you know, when we got on our digital transformation journey, and when we thought of businesses, e-commerce business for one, you know, a lot of those that we didn't succeed earlier on is CFOs are looking for ROI and looking for the 5-year business plan. Every little idea can't have a 5-year business plan and viability and ROI. So when you start doing it that way, obviously things go wrong. And we took years before we realized that that's bound to give you failure and not success. It's been really hard for us to actually set up the little businesses that kind of run independently, and allow them to do things differently within the wider dialogue. I think you know, we have processes, platforms, procedures, all of that is so very set. But if you try to do all of that within something that needs to be quick, fast, dirty, and easy, and get it out there, then you can't do it that way. So that has been the biggest failure and the most difficult challenge, which we are still overcoming, and some of which we managed to overcome. Not fast enough, not great enough, but certainly doing that, because we realize that's the way to go. The one other thing is we've also kind of got into this, we've specifically decided that we want a culture of innovation, and we want all our employees to get on board and get on the journey. So we've kind of taken away that fear of failure and said, like, go try something, go create something. You know, it can be cool. If it doesn't work, just leave it and get away. You know, it doesn't matter, because if you try 1,000 things, you know, even if only 100 succeed, isn't that absolutely wonderful, right? So we've tried to kind of give that idea to our employees and say, go. In fact, we've even gone beyond now to look at entrepreneurship. And that is connected, of course, to you know, what we do. And what we allow is a sabbatical for employees who have a great idea that may have something to do with partnerships and ecosystems within our realm of business. And we have Idea Mart, you know, that allows for thousands of businesses to connect. So we allow our employees, if they have a great idea, also through a Dialogue Axiata Innovation Fund, to be able to give them some money to go try out this thing, give them a sabbatical. If it works, we can come into a rev share partnership within the greater ecosystem of products and services and innovations that Dialogue offers. If it does not work, if it fails, they can just come back to work. So that, I think, is a good idea to try to get the entrepreneurship.
In a way, creating the business entrepreneurs inside. You know, you're really getting the juicers. I think it just leads to promoting the culture as well, very strong culture of that. Pilar, you've been quiet, so I'm going to come to you now. I don't know whether maybe perhaps you want to add to a few points that's already been discussed, but I also have a question for you. You know, you all are, Femtech is an award-winning, you know, company, award-winning initiative. Femtech is slated to grow, if I've read it right, 18 billion by 2025. Has your approach to Femtech been an incremental, gradual, continuous improvement, or has it been just, do you see it as disruptive and just radical? My question to you is, can both work, or do we need that disruptive, radical nature? Because you spoke of such a massive social impact, you know, so is it that latter disruptive approach that is needed to really reach high levels of sustainability? And Janani spoke at the early saying, you know, planet-wide scale achievement. Pilar,
Yes,
over to you.
thank you. Thank you. So just to complement to what my colleagues were saying regarding innovation, there is a clear need for any company to have an innovation culture that really fosters creativity, agility, failure-friendly culture, and also breakthrough initiatives, right? If companies, to your question, don't really support breakthrough initiatives that will have a certain level of risks, and that may not be big in volume tomorrow, but it may take a few more years to really take that bump, companies will not really be successful in innovating. To your point, specifically in the femtech arena, we need both. We need both. Actually, today, majority of the sales in femtech and primarily for feminine hygiene and health are really products of one single use. Those products need to be continuously improved to do better in terms of sustainability and better to really cater to women's needs. But I think you will agree with me that electric light did not come as a result of continuous upgrades of candles. So no matter how fast you upgrade those products that are for one single use, you possibly are going to have a very sustainable solution in the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. Now, what we are doing at MAS is really to take that big step into what if we really put consumer first at the center and think of apparel solutions. What could feel more natural and normal for a woman? As she goes through menstruation days or through menopause hot flashes or an episode of urinary incontinence, than just wearing her normal clothes, underwear, right? That's what we are doing, offering apparel solutions that have incorporated those technology solutions to really cater to their needs. And while doing that, as those solutions are truly reusable, women can use it, wash it, reuse it again. We are really making a significant impact for the environment as well. Now, as I said, of course, that today may still be a niche area that really needs to take off in the next year. So we need our peers in the other sector, which is more about the one single use product, to really contribute equally to really improve the sustainability profile of those products. Yes, so we really need both breakthrough initiatives as well as continued improvement of well-traditional products.
Great. Thank you. Now, I know when I saw the profiles of this panelist, I was like, 1 hour is never going to do justice to have a conversation with you guys. We can go on. I was going to ask more. So now I have managed to get additional 5 minutes. They've told me strictly 5 extra minutes, right? So I can squeeze something more to this conversation. I want to do 2 very quick rounds. So I'm encouraging and I'm hoping that you guys will stick to 1 minute each on both the rounds. So we get 2 minutes there, one is, this conversation from the outset has been about trying to inspire more people to, understand failure, culture of innovation. Let's do, foster innovation overall. If you are to give, to encourage firms to foster innovation, what is that one point you would say to businesses, private sector? What point you want to share to them saying, why should they foster innovation? Why should they take on innovation? Can I start with Joe, Sandra, Pilar, and then Irfan, please?
Thank you. Innovation is a key differentiator, to be honest with you. Society is changing. We are, in leaps and bounds. And therefore, if you are to remain relevant in whatever sector you are in, you must innovate. And you innovate as you think about societal needs and societal challenges. When you do that, then your business will be sustainable. Because when society is thriving in a sustainable manner, your business therefore has a chance to be sustainable because society is thriving in a sustainable manner. So we have a role, all of us, to play in business to address societal needs. Thank you.
Brilliant. Sandra, your minute?
Yeah, sure. So when I look at all the companies, Fortune 500 companies, all of the businesses that have truly succeeded or are succeeding today, if you look at their journey within innovation, within what they create for societal good and planet, there is actually a business case that it does give you the opportunity for making profits, greater profits, quantum changes to society and the planet for the good of it. And that we know also from much of the research we've read, much of the use cases, that actually doing good does make business sense, does give you for profit, and because customers are willing to pay more for or to those companies that does business that way. So certainly I think all of this is good for business, good for making higher profits on the long term. So because of that, I think it is something that is mandatory, it is an imperative, it is something that all of us have to, should, and must do, or will be extinct.
All right, thank you. Can I go to the next, Irfan, you, and then Pilar?
So I think there's no excuse not to innovate. If you're not innovating, there's something wrong. Business as usual won't do. We may be basically making profits today, but if you're looking at creating value for tomorrow, then if you're not innovating, you're really not a part of the agenda. More than ever, there's never been a better time to create an impact. The world, as we know, is resetting, recalibrating, markets are changing, consumers are changing, trends and shifts are becoming more unpredictable, but also within our grasp. So if you really look at it as an opportunity, there's really no excuse to give if you're not really pursuing an innovation agenda. Now,
Pilar?
Thank you. I think we wouldn't be here today talking through Zoom if someone wouldn't have innovated such a platform, right? So innovation is critical for everything we do in our lives. I guess my advice to companies would be, dedicate sufficient funds to innovation. Make sure that that really travels across the company. As Joe said, innovation doesn't really stay in one place. Everybody has the right to innovate within a company and possibly the chance to do innovations. But also for the companies, it's not to judge with the same financial metrics innovation that are short-term or long-term, that are upgrades or really significant breakthrough ideas. I think we have to be flexible with future ideas, take some risks, and judge those ideas on a different KPIs.
Great, thank you, Pilar. So we thank you very much, panelists. Now we're coming to the last segment of the panel discussion. Now I give you again a minute, and I'll start with Pilar and go the reverse order to give your final remarks. So you can sum up from your take on what you want to say at the end, building on the conversation, the points, leaving further conversation, thought-provoking stuff. You can frame your remarks around the business case for innovation. I think more focus on impact on society, and very importantly, how it helps accelerate the achievement of SDGs. Pilar, from you, let me start.
Thank you. So very fast. I think by the end of this session, we all agree that innovation is critical in any company, and innovation really drives significant progress in society in general. That really requires also focus and investment from the companies to really support that type of innovation culture within the company. What I would like to remind ourselves is that, from everything said today, we have a massive impact on faster achievement of those SDGs globally. And even in places like Sri Lanka, that might be considered a small island, there is fantastic work done there. In the case of Femtech, actually for products that are sold all around the world and making a significant difference in people's lives, and by extension, in also improving the environmental impact of the industry in general. So that would be my conclusion. Together with men and women, equally important that both together are really fighting the taboos. This is not just something that bothers women.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Irfan, over to you.
So my closing remarks, Fadil, would be as we move forward, not just profit, but social purpose is going to be very important as we accelerate in this decade of acceleration. So that's going to be important no matter how big or small your business is. And if you are looking at that form of value creation, which is profit plus social purpose, then innovation is going to be important. It's not hard to do. I do have 2 technology colleagues here, so it's not expensive. You first need to think about creating an impact. What's the impact and what's the meaning? And then technology is mostly the enabler. So don't put technology in front. Technology is enabler. It's the value that needs to come in front. And just start. It's like a muscle. The more you flex it, the better you become. So yeah, let's just make
let's keep flexing it more then, to do better there. So Sandra, over to you. Thank you very much, Irfan. Sandra, over to you for your...
Yeah, I'm muted. Sorry about that. So I just want to quickly think about the barriers. If everyone can start thinking about why is it that we don't innovate? Why are we slow in doing this? Let's look at the gaps. And I find mostly, as we all know as well, the gaps are really around knowledge, technical resources, people, talent, and all of that. And if you look at the other difficulties, it's also insufficient infrastructure, limited data volumes, wide variety in sort of maturity of these emerging technologies, how we look at and think of the putting money behind upskilling and reskilling our workforce, how we encourage collaboration and building that wider platforms, partnerships, and ecosystems. And also our way of thinking surely have had to change now. It has to be interdisciplinary work cultures. And of course, regulatory frameworks as well. So if we kind of focus on all of this, I feel, and really, make all of that, enable all of that, we will get far faster together.
Super, super. I think it requests, we need another half an hour on that gaps point itself to discuss, I would say, there's so much. Joe, for your final remark, over to you, Joe, for your minute.
Spare a thought for the UN Global Compact. Amazing effort that they're doing to put together the private sector, to align our thinking, to focus our minds on addressing the SDGs. This is the one chance we have as a global society to really address inequalities, to really address poverty. Let's not waste this chance. And there's no single company, no single industry that working in isolation will be able to address the huge challenges that we face. So let's work together from different sectors, different industries, so that we address the challenges that there are in our society. I thank you so much for this opportunity.
Brilliant, Joe. You've just given an excellent cue for me to sort of wrap up as well this panel discussion. So in the next 2 minutes, thank you very much, dear panelists. It's for me, it's been a pleasure to have you all part of this insightful panel, and I look forward to sort of engaging, learning from you guys in the future as well. Colleagues, everyone who joined us, like we have heard from our panelists, businesses can, through disruptive, radical innovation, contribute to the level of sustainability needed on a planet-wide scale. Businesses can, but does not have to, involve the creation of a new product or service. New technologies and approaches such as business process reengineering, human-centered design have the potential to fundamentally alter the cost of achieving progress through their simplicity and effectiveness. The SDGs are about universal. They are interconnected. They are exponential in nature. They present, like Sandra and others said, a roadmap for creating systemic financial, social, and environmental value. And as the UN Global Compact notes, achieving SDGs by 2030 has the potential not only generate peace and shared prosperity on a healthy planet, but also opens up a 12 trillion market opportunity. Exponential goals require transformational solutions that go beyond incremental innovation. The United Nations Global Compact calls on companies to raise their sustainability ambitions and act decisively to adopt new mindset, which we all spoke about, build and try new business models, experiment, develop and deploy disruptive technologies like Sandra, Joe, 5G, automation, quantum, all these things. This is what breakthrough innovation really means. This will position companies to overcome market disruptions and pursue growth opportunities, while at the same time helping to reverse global warming and radically improve lives. Global goals are not just for people in sustainability and development communities. It is intended to direct the business community as a whole towards more sustainable and equitable society. And we heard from all of you that. And according to the United Nations that I represent, we see technology and innovation are central to the implementation of the SDGs and the 2030 agenda. And as I saw in a report recently, and let me conclude with that, by the Boston Consulting Group, the private sector has a unique capacity to innovate quickly, attract capital to innovate solutions, and drive innovation at scale. This combination is hard to find in the public sector, which I sometimes struggle as leading Citra in the public sector or in the social sector, but it is the private sector's lifeblood. And as they say, innovation is the only way to win the SDG race. It's time for, I quote from the report, it's time for SDG champions in public, social, and private sectors to assess how well they are running the race to 2030. Although we have some good runners amongst us, we are at the risk of finding ourselves far from the finish line in 2030. If, however, we unleash private sector innovation in the SDGs cause, we may finish strong. Thank you very much, panelists, and thank you very much, everyone. Until next time, stay well and safe. Thank you. Have a good evening.